Alright, in this short video we're going to review the whole structure of the persuasive essay. We're going to do that by looking at an outline that shows what happens in the different paragraphs of the persuasive essay, and then we're going to see how that's reflected in the sample essay that you've already read. So, just to remind you all, the persuasive essay is focused on convincing someone to do something differently. The most important sentence is the thesis statement, where you say what your plan is. And the rest of the paper is built around convincing the audience that that plan of yours is a good idea. And I just want to remind everyone that the plan that you're proposing, the change, it needs to take place in either the town or neighborhood where you live, or your workplace, or at JVS. So the idea is that you are trying to argue, you're trying to persuade a whole group of people to accept your idea. You are not, and you want them to change the rules or change the policies, to change the way they do something. You are not just making an argument to a bunch of individuals and asking each individual to change something in their own lives. You are making a public argument. You're arguing for a group to decide to change the way they do things as a group. So for instance, you might argue that JVS should offer a new kind of class, or you might argue that your workplace should have a new safety procedure, or you might argue that your town should put up more stop signs in your neighborhood for safety. But you're not going to argue that an individual should change their habits, okay? So, now let's look at the structure that you use to do that. This model of the persuasive essay has 5 paragraphs. The first paragraph is the introduction. The introduction always starts with a hook, okay? Something to capture the reader's attention. That could be a little bit of descriptive or narrative writing, you know? You show the reader something, or you tell them a little story that has something to do with your topic in order to capture their attention. Or it could just be giving them a shocking fact, a surprising fact. But somehow you're trying to capture their attention in the hook at the very, very beginning of the essay. And it has something to do with your topic. And then next, in the middle of the introduction, you're going to give the background information. You're going to explain what the reader needs to know to understand the proposal that you're making. So they have to understand, what's the situation right now? And is there some problem with the way things are now? What is the problem that exists right now that you're going to address with your plan? And then finally, at the end of the introduction, at the end of the first paragraph, is going to be your thesis statement. And this is just one sentence in which you very plainly say, this is what we should do. This is what the organization needs to do differently because it has some sort of benefit or advantage. So this is an example of how you can write that sentence. JVS, or the town of Malden, or our Dunkin' Donuts location should do something because it will have benefits. Okay? That's the basic formula for the thesis statement. You don't have to use those exact words, but you need to make it clear who should or needs to do what, and very briefly why. You don't have to list all of the reasons why in detail, but you need to give some idea of why this would be worth it, okay? And that's what's happening in the introduction. Then you have 3 body paragraphs. Each of the first 2 body paragraphs, body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, each of them is focused on a different benefit of your plan, okay? Now, you might explain a little bit more what your plan is doing. You might explain the problem with the way things are a little bit more, but the focus of each of these first two body paragraphs is the benefit that this will bring, okay? That's the most important thing to focus on. So the first sentence of each of these first two body paragraphs will be a topic sentence. The topic sentence at the beginning of the paragraph gives the main idea of the paragraph. What is this paragraph about? Now we know it's going to focus on a benefit. So you could have a topic sentence that says something like, one benefit of my plan, one benefit of JVS offering this new class is that, and then you're going to just briefly state what the benefit is, right? And then after that, you're going to support the topic sentence and make your reader believe what you just said about the benefit by explaining more, giving examples, giving evidence that really convinces the reader that, yes, if we carry out this plan, it will have these benefits, okay? And then you do the same thing in the second body paragraph. You focus on a new benefit. And this one should be even more convincing, right? You want to save the best for last. You have two different body paragraphs focused on benefits. You want the stronger benefit, the stronger argument to come second. But you're doing things the exact same way. Start it with a topic sentence that gives the main idea of the paragraph, and then support that topic sentence by explaining more, giving examples, giving evidence, so that the reader believes, yes, this plan will have this benefit that you just said it would. Now, the third body paragraph is different than those first two. Now that you have established, like, oh, this plan would have a lot of benefits, it has some good advantages, there are some good reasons that we should enact my plan. Once you've established that, now you're going to consider possible objections, right? If your organization or your town or your workplace isn't already doing this, maybe there are some reasons why they haven't done it. Maybe people think it would be too expensive or it would be too difficult, right? So you're going to show that counter argument. You're going to consider it, and then you're going to explain why your plan is a good plan anyway. Your plan is a good plan despite the counter argument, okay? So you say some people might object, or some people might argue that, you know, this plan will be too expensive, or we don't need stop signs at the end of the street, or whatever it is. Or JVS doesn't need a new class, or it would be too difficult to have a whole new class, or not enough students would want to take the new class. Whatever you think the reasonable counter-arguments, the reasonable objections to your plan might be, you're going to state them, but you're going to make it clear that this is what somebody else might say. And then, once you have stated the objection, the counter-argument, then you're going to explain why your proposed plan should be enacted anyway. However, this plan actually would work because, however, the advantages outweigh the disadvantages because, and you're going to explain why your plan should be carried out. And then, if there's more than one counter argument you need to share, then you can do the same thing over again in the same paragraph, right? You can present one counter argument and then explain why your plan should be carried out despite the counter argument, and then you can present a new counter argument and explain why your plan should be carried out despite that counter argument, okay? Whatever you need to do to make this paper as convincing as possible. You might need to mention a couple of different objections to be really convincing. That's up to you. And then finally, the last paragraph, it's not really adding much that is new. Instead, you're summarizing the most important points from the body of the essay, but you're doing it in new words, okay? And you're summarizing it, so that means that you're you're giving the basic information, but you're doing it in a much shorter space. You're not giving all the details, you're just giving the main ideas, the most important points, okay? And you're doing it in new words. So if we look over at the sample persuasive essay again, we can see how the conclusion does that, how it summarizes the most important points. Therefore, despite our busy schedules and our habits of eating easy, familiar dishes, it seems clear that this new plan will save us time and money while feeding both our bodies and our souls. Right? Those are the 4 different points that were made in the body paragraphs. By investing some extra effort just 2 times a month, we will be ensuring ourselves a steady supply of delicious, nutritious, and inexpensive meals, 18 of them each month. The best part is we'll be coming closer together at the same time. So again, it's making the same basic arguments, but in a much shorter space, right? Just in 3 sentences. It is summing up the most important points from the whole body of the essay. And then you're going to add one thing that is new. You're going to end the conclusion, and you're ending the entire essay with a call to action. So this is a sentence or a couple of sentences where you tell the reader to take some specific action. Okay? You are calling them to act, to do something. So here's an example. For all these reasons, I urge you, or I urge the management at JVS, or I urge the management at this Dunkin' Donuts, or I urge the city council of Malden to do something, to vote for this, to study this issue, to hire an outside expert to survey it, to do something specific. And it can be just the first step that they are taking towards carrying out your plan. It doesn't have to be the whole plan. It can just be the first little step towards carrying it out. So in the example here, we have one sentence, which is the call to action. So during our house meeting next week, please think of sharing that fragrant, spicy curry with your housemates, and also sharing conversation and laughter, and then vote for this plan. Do something specific, which is going to turn this plan into a reality. That's the call to action, right? Because the whole essay is focused on convincing someone to do something, to convince them to put your plan into place. And so the ending of the essay is a place of power, and it's what they'll remember. You don't want your call to action to get lost somewhere. You want them to remember it. You want them to act. You want them to do something, right? So you end the whole essay with this call to action. You can go back and look at the previous videos that I sent you, which talk about what happens in the first 3 paragraphs and then in the last 2 paragraphs in more detail. But I just wanted to remind you that this is the overall structure of the whole essay. This is how the 5 paragraphs of the persuasive essay are working together. The introduction, where you capture the reader's attention, you explain the situation as it is now, and you give the thesis statement. This is what we need to do. This needs to do this because it will have benefits, right? And then 2 body paragraphs focused on the benefits that your plan will have. That is the focus of those. What are the advantages of carrying out my plan? And then the counter arguments paragraph, where you consider the objections that someone might have in order to show the reader that you've really thought carefully about this and you understand that there could be some disadvantages, but still, at the end of the day, your proposal has more advantages than disadvantages. The benefits outweigh the costs. And therefore, in the conclusion, you remind them of all the most important points, and you end with that call to action to make sure that they actually do something to make your plan into a reality. And that's how those 5 paragraphs of the persuasive essay are supposed to work together. That is the structure that you need to follow in your own essay to get the best possible grade. All right. Thank you for your time. I hope that helps.